Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison, and I want to welcome to day 73 of Humanity Rising. Every day since the 22nd of May, Ubiquity University and upwards of 350 partners worldwide have convened Humanity Rising as an open space so that every day people from around the world can come together and share their experiences of this extraordinary pandemic that we are going through. We're all under some form of lockdown. We're all engaging in social distancing. We thought initially that it might be over by springtime, and now it's moving into summer, and the pandemic abides. Just today, the South African government announced they've had over 500,000 cases, and they're enhancing their lockdown and social distancing strictures. The state of Victoria in Australia has had a dramatic upsurge of COVID-19 cases as well, and they're in an enhanced lockdown. Other countries, especially in the United States and Brazil, where the governments have been particularly lackadaisical and defiant of the science, the coronavirus cases are still going out of control and setting new records every single day. Interestingly, while it was only initially in the United States with President Trump and the alt-right defying science and saying the pandemic was no big deal and it was all fake news, and what's the deal with wearing masks anyway, and refusing and suing and protesting, which was one of the reasons why the cases have gone up across the board. Today, there was 10,000 people in Berlin with the same extraordinary denial and defiance against the obvious. And I think it's worth noting that the pandemic is now nearly 6 months with us. People are getting tired. People are getting anxious. The gross domestic product of the United States has collapsed to the worst quarter in US history, similarly in the European Union and other countries around the world. And people are beginning to wonder what is going on here and why can't it just get better? That's the sentiment in Berlin and other places where the gravity of the reality in which we find ourselves is so stark that denial and refusal to take seriously science is increasingly a temptation to more and more people. In this moment, the world needs wisdom as never before. And it's not the wisdom of modernity, because modernity is what produced the pandemic. It's not even the wisdom of science, because the pandemic is intractable so far in the face of everything we scientifically know. It's not the wisdom of the great religions. I believe that the only wisdom that can guide us now is the wisdom of the earth and the wisdom of those peoples, the indigenous peoples, who have always remembered the earth. In some deep and mysterious way, beyond our reckoning, beyond our intellect, beyond our logic, and beyond our analytical mind. The pandemic is here for a reason. Through it, the mother is speaking to us. And she's telling us to wake up. She's telling us to listen more deeply than we have ever listened before to her whispers, to her guidance, to her deep truth that humanity needs to go home. We need to return to the mother. So this is a time as never before where we need to listen to the elders, the indigenous people that we vanquished and conquered and marginalized and despoiled beyond belief, are the only ones that can lead us back to the mother now. So I feel deeply humbled and deeply privileged today to be able to introduce our session, which is really just Voices of the Elders. Voices of those who remember the ancestors. I would like to now introduce Edna Jean Fleury, an indigenous from North America, who's been one of the conveners of the Sacred Earth Council. I've known Edna for many, many years, respect her highly. I want to welcome Chief Phil Lane, who I met as we were remembering when our hair was black many, many years ago in 1995. I want to welcome Grandmother Robin, another elder from North America, to share with us now in the next few minutes the wisdom that we need to hear. So thank you, everyone. If you have any comments or questions, please put them in the chats. It'd be nice to know where everybody's come from. I happen to be in Paris right now. I'm still under lockdown here in Europe. So I'm coming to you from France. Thank you, and I turn it now over to Edna.
Greetings, greetings, all my relatives. And it is a deep honor, privilege, and also a responsibility that I speak to you today. I personally know that this isn't an accident, that I'm 73 years old now. I've been given a range of experiences, and it's my deepest responsibility as a mother, as a grandmother, as a great grandmother, and as an inspirited being here on the planet to share in as deep a way and as a profound a way to from my heart and my soul and my beingness to encourage and give inspiration in the ways that I am able to. So thank you for this great honor, O universe, and all my relatives here. And what I'd like to do is to have Grandmother Robin, give us an opening prayer so we can all come into greater resonance together. And then I would like for each of us to give maybe a deeper introduction of ourselves. So Grandmother Robin, if you could burn some sage and give us prayer, I would deeply appreciate it.
I've been burning the sage since Jim started talking. Greetings, everyone. I'd say good morning or good evening, but we're all in different time zones. I see that we have folks from Australia and Canada and Europe and all over the US. So welcome all of you. We're really glad you're here. I'll start with a prayer to bring us into resonance. And I would ask you just to close your eyes, go deep into your hearts. Feel the pulsing heart that is within all of us and that connects us all. Feel the energy that moves around our circle here, because we are in a circle, whether we can see it or not. And feel how that energy connects us. Grandmothers and grandfathers, Wankatanka, Tankashla, Kulanchutin, Allah, all the names that we call the divine mystery. We welcome all those who are joining us today, our ancestors, the animals, the plants, all the beings who are listening to us today. We welcome COVID-19, who is a great teacher. Mother Earth is called time out. We've been sent to our rooms to think for a while and to reflect on what we've been doing here. Great mystery. We know that we are here for a purpose. We know that we are the ones who together can co-create and birth a new Earth that's better for all of us. Based, however, on very, very old principles and values that come from our indigenous people around the world. We ask you to help us to speak those things into this beautiful community so that each one of us can reflect and hold those teachings in a good way, so that as we move into the world with our own passion and purpose, whatever that may be, we reflect the teachings that are given. May it be so, Hiachatualo.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. So, Brother Phil, if you'd like to make some welcoming comments and start with the introductions, a deeper introduction for each of us as elders.
There we go. Well, Hunkashi, thank you so much, Sister Robin and Hunkashi Ajna. Just want to extend a really warm embrace and handshake to each and every relative who was here with us. Thank you so much, Jim, for the great work you've done for so many years to uplift our human family. We are in this time that's been prophesied by all our visionaries from indigenous peoples across the Americas and around the world. I was born at Haskell Indian School in Lawrence, Kansas. That's where my mother and father were sent to school during the time when we had boarding schools. My father was 12 when he was sent. He was raised by my great-grandfather, Tipisapa Philip Deloria, and that's how Ijna and I are married through the Ihawachasha Owl Man Spies Dakota people. And you know, my life has been one of, first of all, you know, my father was very close. We were very close. And he'd been through a lot in his life. My grandfather being murdered, my grandmother dying from tuberculosis when he was 5, being raised by my grandmother, Ella Deloria. But the thing was, he never, ever gave up hope about what was going to happen in the future, because he knew well these prophecies that he so kindly shared with me when I was younger. And he knew that this world we live in would come back into balance. And so here we are, these prophecies unfolding. And so I'm just turned 76 winters. feel like I'm still a young man yet. I feel like this is the very best time in my life. The other part got here so quick, I can't hardly remember it. But now, you know, if you've ever run a 400 meters or ever wrestled a wrestling match or played a football game or played a basketball game or whatever kind of thing you've done where there's a certain series of like you run so many laps or you run 100 meters or whatever, where do you have to be the strongest? Where do you have to be the strongest in a basketball game? Where do you have to be the strongest in a football game? Where do you have to be the strongest in a lacrosse game or a soccer game? That last quarter, that's when you have to be the strongest. And so that's why I believe that it's the time for the elders ourselves to rise up. We have no excuses at this point not to step into this situation because it was our generations, really. Our generations, we have to take responsibility for what's happening with our grandchildren equally to anybody else on the face of this Mother Earth. That doesn't mean we have to blame anybody. We take action ourselves, and that's what we're doing. And I really thank you, Edna, for the Sacred Earth Council doing this. And I'm not going to go too much further in this in terms of having to describe, other than to say that I truly believe with all my heart and soul, and I believe this for 53 years, and that is the prior unity and oneness of our human family. And I believe we're in the process of waking up to this incredible understanding that it goes along with it, that the hurt of one is the hurt of all, and the honor of one is the honor of all. Last comment I'd like to make, if I may, is that I believe that as an elder, I happen to be having to make an essential trip today here in a couple hours, down right into the strongholds of our dear relative, coronavirus relatives. And so when I go down, I'm going to be wearing.
Sorry, Phil, we've lost your video. Did you by
That's all right.
chance?
That's right.
Okay.
Can you see my picture?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just talk for this for a second. As an elder, I believe that our elders protected life in every dimension and every way possible. I have 18 grandchildren. I have 6 daughters, 1 son. I have relatives. I have brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles. And to walk in to a situation where this little relative can get in there to help us, exactly what, by the way, I completely believe what Sister Robin said. You know, then who do I endanger? I endanger my life. I endanger others' life. Now, I know when I go to the airport with this on, my friend and I, they're going to probably laugh. I really don't care. Because the fact is, especially as elders, we have to reflect the realization that this can take lives. And it has taken my neighbor 2 doors down, my wife's uncle. This is real. It's a killer. So protect yourself. And I'm looking forward to this journey, but I want to share that. You know, as elders, we have to reflect the fact that no chance should be given of any form to harm a human life. Therefore, we need to be able to hear and listen and humble ourselves. Arrogance is not our way. Humility is our way. The way that I know that our elders have laid for us. Not saying I'm completely there yet. So thank you, sister. Thank you. And let's have a good day. I hope.
Thank you. Thank you, Tibdo. Sister, Grandmother Robin, if you could introduce yourself in more deeply and also as an elder, that would be beautiful. Thank you.
My name is Robin Taquelas Youngblood. I'm Okanagan, Cherokee, Sempoil, Nez Perce, a little Anishinaabe, and a little Dutch and French. I'm a merry mixed up mutt. And I had a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Cherokee mother. She moved us off the reservation when I was very young. She did that, just like Phil's protective equipment here, to keep me safe. She was very afraid of all the prejudice and the blame that went to Indian people. I have an adopted Hanai mother too, who is Spokane Indian, and she was literally grabbed from her grandmother's house and taken to boarding school. Yeah. So my mom didn't want that to happen to me. And they moved us off the reservation. My mom actually made my dad and my dad had big nose and big brown eyes and black hair. She made him tell everybody he was Italian. At the time, I really rebelled against all of that. She tried to keep me from running with the other Indian kids in school, and it wouldn't work because I knew who I was. I knew who I was when I was born. And what we find today with a lot of young people is that they remember why they came in, why they came into this specific incarnation. They are ready to do the work, and they need the teachings. So throughout my life, I've gone through many phases of both light and darkness. The middle name I was given, Taquelas, actually means one who sees through the darkness into the light. That name, when I was given it, I didn't understand. And I had to grow into it. I had to go through periods of darkness to see the light and to be able to share that with others. So what's happened in my life is that I've been incredibly blessed. I went back to my reservation when I was a young adult and practically begged the elders to teach me. Carried a lot of wood and a lot of water. Yeah. So over time, I learned. And one of the things I would say to everyone is, it's a time when we can catch things very quickly. And the deeper learning, the living of what we learn, is where wisdom comes in. Knowledge is fine. It's wonderful. And there's all kinds of scientific knowledge and conspiracy theories and all kinds of things going on around right now. We are inundated with knowledge streams. And where's the wisdom? The wisdom must come from deep within. And a large part of what I've learned over the years is that the way that we increase our real depth of understanding, our intuitive knowing, if you would, is through ceremony. Our people, one of the great things about indigenous people is that we are watchers. We observe the land that we live in. The medicine wheels, there are many medicine wheels all over the world. I had the great experience of seeing what Michael Tellinger thinks is the original 40,000-year-old medicine wheel in South Africa, Adam's calendar. People have always, indigenous people anyway, have always watched the land to see what's happening in each phase of the land. The seasons, when do you plant, when do you hunt, when do you dig the roots, when do you fish? Yeah. We've always looked to see what colors go with that. Wherever we are, it's different. Every medicine wheel is different. People even have personal medicine wheels, personal colors that we're given as we experience life. Okay? I think a large part of what's happened in the modern world is everybody's gotten way too busy. We've forgotten to observe. We've forgotten to see what it is that Mother's requesting of us. And somebody wrote in here, Mom will give you once, twice, 3 times a nice request. After that, she starts screaming. We've been getting warnings. I remember Thomas Banyaka, Hambat's men, Papa Henry FWII, many, many teachers came and sat around my kitchen table in the early 90s, late 80s, and they all told us this was going to happen. Every single indigenous culture has a prophecy about this time. Yeah. We didn't listen. So we got huge earthquakes and volcanoes exploding and forest fires that ravaged whole countries. And we still didn't listen. Now we have COVID. COVID is worldwide. Nobody gets to pretend it doesn't exist. They can say it's a hoax, but they know it exists. Yeah? It is our time to change the world. It is our time to change ourselves, because we can't change the world if we don't change ourselves. And a large part of the way that we can do that is through ceremony. And with that, Edna, I'm going to turn it back to you to talk about Sacred Earth Council.
Thank you. So one of the things I wanted to do is to honor this this universe, our lives, our existence, because it's time for us to really acknowledge ourselves, the mystery of who and what we are as human being. You know, we have our self-concept, we have our lives, and we have this time now of COVID to really deepen in a different way. And that's why we're here to not only acknowledge this and not only to recommend this, but also to find our way forward so that we can participate more with this together. I acknowledge my whole life. I am 73, I'll be 74 in October, but I have to honor my whole life as being guided by spirit. I was a dreamer from my whole life I've been a dreamer. And when I was 4, 5, and 6 years old, I still remember those dreams, and they were monumental and cataclysmic. And then as I got older, trauma entered my life. The trauma of being an Indigenous person and what that's like to suffer shunning, to suffer hunger, to suffer molest, to suffer terror, being dominated. And then as my life unfolded, I did not have I guess it could be called a luxury, but then it could be called a block to be associated with any one religion. So when it came time for me to question more deeply, as we should be doing now, to question deeply, I had the more openness. I wasn't tied into any traditional sense of ritual. So what I said was, wow, all the religions have a start. Christ had experiences and initiations. Muhammad had experiences and initiations, and Zoroaster, and all of the great teachers. Gandhi, he had a connection with the deep. And so that's what I said for myself personally, was I want my own personal experience. And I began this chant, reveal yourself to me, reveal yourself to me. Even when I was changing diapers or washing dishes or driving a car, in the background, reveal yourself to me, because our connection, no matter who we are, we have some kind of a deep resource that we go to, whether we're red, yellow, black, or white, whether we're old or young. We have some kind of a refuge that we go to within ourselves. And So I was also at the same time reading and taking in all these different traditions. But when Creator started the revelation, the process of revelation of the of the grandeur of the universe and started giving hints that, because that's all I could tolerate at the time, were hints of the magnificence of my being and of our being, and then being grown gradually. And so when I came time to face my molest, or to face the beatings, or to face my own monster, because I became a monster also, not only a victim, but a monster also. I had this the pole star of knowing the sacredness. And it was so beyond words and so beyond description, but I had this magnificent treasure to know my own connection to the mystery. And so knowing this deep connection to mystery, then it made it more possible to accept myself, to accept that I had been monstrous at times to my own children, that I had been judgmental, that I had this great judge that no one could ever, the critic, coming down on every situation. But then I was able to be softened by that love of this great universal love. And as my heart seems to be inside my body, but on the other levels, on our other levels of our being, our heart is as big as creation itself. Our ability to love as humans is as big as creation itself. Our awareness, our consciousness. And this is where we don't spend nearly enough time, is our awareness. How do we smell? How do we hear? How do we know? How do we feel? Except through our awareness. And that's where meditation and spending time, not only out in this outer world, but the inner world, as the inner world starts to open, and you have to be introduced in gradualness, because to be introduced too much is overwhelming, and people can go psychotic, or they can check out entirely. But the magnificence of who we really are is truly beyond words. But it is also a companion. And that's why we have all the writings of all the great mystics, as they have shared in their own way this treasured relationship. Rumi's writings, that their recollections helping us recollect our own true nature and our true being. And we need this recollection to turn to face. And this is another theme that I'd like to bring up, because in our sacredness and honoring the sacred, we have our actions of abomination. I have to say it that way. Abomination of killing others, not just judging others, but killing them, of torturing others, and of hurting. War. War is hell. And then the trauma people carry from war. And it's multi-generational. And now with our epigenetic research, we know that it's even into our genes in our cells. And I don't know if many of you got to listen to Thomas Hubble's dialogue and with Jim for the 70th day, but he spoke very eloquently and very honorably of this trauma that we all carry, that there's not one human on earth that isn't touched by this multi-generational trauma, either coming directly from this life or down through the ancestors. So we have this trauma and we have had the actions that it has caused us to make. And I know I'm going on and on about this, but I feel like this is such an important task, responsibility, work that we need to participate with together, all of us humans, that war is a collective act. It's not just an individual act. So even though some of us have individual trauma, we have collective trauma. And when we started this, even in the prayer, and Jim's introduction, when he was saying, you know, the effect of colonialism and Western expansion upon indigenous people all over the world. So that action, those actions came out of people who were already traumatized and not able to feel and not able to really recognize indigenous as fellow human beings. And now at this time, we're being asked to make a great leap. We're being asked to not only recognize these acts, the heinous acts of war, the heinous acts of chopping babies. You know, when somebody conquers a city through ancient times, they would chop up babies, they would rape all the women. This is still going on. This is not new. So we're still doing these things. But we face this now with those of us who know that we are much beyond this, and all of these have arisen out of not only ignorance, but in learning about, we haven't really learned about power. We've put power in a hierarchy, and there's been an abuse of power. In looking at some of the comments that were made in the chat, somebody said, oh, we need to create teams, something like this. But that now, what this recognition of trauma does, it levels the playing field. All of our leadership needs to question, wow, how is my leadership being affected by the trauma? How is my leadership in domination? That's a direct abuse of power. And so, and then this leveling of playing field, and how people have been, the masses of humanity who live in so much ignorance, that are not afforded knowledge or to participate fully in who they really are, because they're not fed well, or they're not brought to education well. So we have work to do. And I feel like this time of COVID is the time where we need to recognize our commonness of humanity, a commonness of our sacredness, and the commonness to face all that we have done, so that we can truly heal these things, so we can really recognize our own divinity. So Sacred Earth Council was brought together in total synchronicity. Right now, I'm wishing I had some other panel members to tell this story of Sacred Earth Council, because humanity, humanity is sacred. We are all of the earth, and we all need to be in council. So actually, humanity is sacred earth. council. And this is the work in very many ways. Ceremony, we will be having dreams for those who don't have the opportunity to work with their dreams. We need to have ways to do that. We need to bring people who have visions and to listen and to our visions and to song and dance and all these different ceremonies. So, and then from ceremony, we need to have a time to dialogue, to talk. How do we process? How do we come together? And so I'd like to call on both Phil Lane and Robin to speak not only, well, of all these matters, and in terms of sacred dialogue through talking circles, sacred action through ceremony, and for them to reflect in the same way that I have on these times and the tasks we have at hand right now. So I'd like to invite Phil Lane, if you could speak about these times and these challenges and the answering by bringing ourselves together more.
The days we live in have been foretold by indigenous visionaries across the Americas, as well as other visionaries of the human family. And in essence, these sacred prophecies across the Americas, in essence, say that a great winter time would come upon our indigenous people. It was told in different ways how that would happen. But the timing, in terms of, as well as the Mayans, of this time of great testing, a time of great purification, a time of great preparation, would be about 500 years. And we begin to really understand and this process had transformed itself from the winter into the spring around 2012. 1992 was another big date of movement. Harmonic conversions, very interesting. The second one, I felt there was a good movement. Really, as I look back 53 years ago, a little over 50 years ago, I was in Bolivia. I stayed 2 years there. And of course, I wouldn't have left unless my wife was brutally raped there by one of the sons of the landowners who at that time, until almost when I arrived there in the late 60s, right before that, if you were an indigenous person who made up the large majority of Bolivia, you could not come into a city without permission from your landlord. And if you came in, you had to come with your landlord, but you could not walk on the street. An Indian was not allowed to walk on the street. So we look back to those days, and I can say this: we have grown. We have stood up so powerfully over the last 50 years. It is a miracle. Because when you go back and look, there was over, when I was at the University of Lethbridge associate professor there for 16 years. And so we had quite a wonderful Native American Studies department. We also had Native Education, quite a group of indigenous people there studying. And the research at that time, when we were turning around 1990, 1995, by that time, a wonderful book had been written called 1491. Well, we knew at that time that probably the total population across the Americas was running around 100 million people. 100 million people. Now, by the time the 1800s roll around, we probably have a loss of 70, 80 million human beings, mainly from disease. Although, of course, smallpox blankets were used, so we know well these use of virus, and I mean, we know about viruses. All these things happen. Now, all these prophecies promised that after this long wintertime, this time of spiritual preparation, there would be an incredible springtime arise for all members of the human family. And at this time, all we've gone through as a human family, including our indigenous people, we would understand it was to strengthen us, to prepare us for this day, to prepare us for what we have to do in this world. And I believe one of the things that's happening today, at the core of the core, is being able to forgive. To forgive. And we have been so deeply in our healing over the last 50 years, and way before that, and not just myself, as you know, there's so many unsung heroes and heroines out there that have been working so hard in their communities, you know, in tough situations, but through understanding intergenerational trauma, and that is trauma is passed on from generation to generation and generation and generation until we stop it here now. It'll continue on. And I think we have to understand as well. I had a chance to read Caesar's diaries, and I really tried to understand, because you can see, you know, there's Chickasaws, Ihanktonwan, Dakotas in here. There's also some English and French here. So I want to know what in the world happened. As I said, my parents went to boarding school, so my dad had a very particular perspective about these things. So I went hitchhiked to New York when I was 18 from wall to wall. We got a boat over to Europe. I spent a year over there, trying to understand, you know. And then as I got deeper into it, I realized you only hurt people. Only abuse people. Only colonize people. Only sick people make people sick. And you begin to see what happened to the relatives in Europe. My gosh. You know, I really like my Toja Lila June Johnson made such a beautiful film recognizing the suffering that went on with our relatives in Europe. So you see in the diaries of Julius Caesar, him coming and saying, you know, we attacked this Germanic, these tribes, whatever. And there was 10,000 people in this particular village, and they came to fight. Of course, the Roman legions were very well trained. And they said after we killed most of the men, it was easy to deal with the rest. And still, we had 3,000 slaves to march to Rome. So our relatives were extremely, extremely hurt there in Europe. They're hurt. And the most relatives who were the most hurt wanted to escape, just like we would want to escape, just like people want to escape today from what's happening in this world. And they came here, yes, and they carried with them all this hurt and pain. And so now we're part of it ourselves. And the thing is that when somebody's been yes, it's been hurtful, but now is the time to heal. And my father used to say, son, if you can feel it, you can heal it. If you can feel it, you can heal it. If you can talk about it, you can understand it. And that's why in 1975, we began searching very deeply. How do we get out of this thing? We know there's elders out there. We began to go, and Thomas Minyaka was one I met, by the way, Sister Robin back in 1969, he was traveling. Thomas Minyaka, Mad Bear Anderson, so many of those great elders. Janet McLeod, wow, well, she's tough. Oh, she was strong. These were great elders. They stood up during those times, and they brought us these prophecies. They told us what was going to occur on these things. And so slowly but surely, you see these things unfold. Here on the West Coast, they have this tremendous canoe journey. That wasn't there in 1975. It wasn't there in 1980. And all of a sudden, you see the West Coast relatives rise up. You're seeing on the East Coast, they're rising up. Rising up in Alaska, across Canada, down. It's just as the prophecy said of the reunion of the condor, the quetzal, and the eagle. They said that after this period of 500 years, we would arise, not just as indigenous peoples of the Americas, but around the world, but also we in the process would awaken the entire human family, the fact we're all indigenous people, and all of us are bound by certain natural laws. In 1982, our elders came together. 4 days and 4 nights. 40 elders came. We asked them, in fact, I had, like when Jim has that white curly hair, I had curly hair like him, but mine's, as I told, just kind of gotten flat. Anyway, so we came together, 4 days and 4 nights. We asked the elders, how do we move out of this? We're suffering 100% alcoholism in some of our communities, 90% it was, we're rampant with sexual abuse from these boarding schools we went through. We're sexually abusing our own people. It's this intergenerational trauma, lateral violence. And they said this. They said this universe we live in is organized according to certain natural laws. And these physical and spiritual laws are inseparably connected. They said it's simple. If you drive a vehicle 100 miles an hour into a concrete wall, you're going to get smashed up. You drink arsenic, you get a stomachache. Whatever you want to imagine, you jump off a building top 10 stories down on top of your head, you're going to get a headache. These are natural laws. I don't care who you are. I mean, you can have 15 degrees, you can be the leader of all, but there's certain natural laws we all have to humble ourselves to. But they said just as real as these physical laws are spiritual laws, these spiritual teachings, they're the foundation of the universe. And they gave us 4. Development comes from within. Others can help and assist, but it must emerge from the individual, the family, the community, and so forth and so on. No vision, no development. We have to have a vision, a possibility. And I really think all these mornings, every morning there's been talking about here on this beautiful program about the vision. How do we move forward? What you're sharing with the Sacred Earth Council, what you shared, Sister Robin. And so in 75, we went to this place called Sweat House Lodge because we'd heard about these 2 elders, Eddie Belrose and Abe Burnstick. Crees came down from, one was from Alberta, one was from Saskatchewan. They brought many teachings. So we went down there, young men, trying to find out prophecies, trying to find out. And they shared with us so many things. So many things. One of the things they shared, by the way, it's so interesting because we're experiencing it right here today. They said, someday you young men are going to be able to look into something. They tried to describe this thing. And you'll be able to look in there and you'll be able to see other people from Mother Earth and they'll be able to see you and you'll be able to talk to them. And begin to describe all these other dimensions of the internet that was to unfold. Unbelievable. I had no idea. We had no idea. What are you talking about? And sure enough, as soon as we saw, and as soon as I saw anyway, they've talked about it, but as soon as I saw it, this everywhere spirit, I'll tell you, I wanted to learn everything I could about it because I knew what they said. And they said this, they said in that day, whatever's been covered up, it's like if you're used to being only in the wintertime, you don't know cycles, you don't know seasons. You're standing and saying, it's my world, right? Springtime comes. Bah! All of a sudden, those strong winds come. Maybe a Chinook comes. Before you know it, that snow is gone. The streams, what seems solid, are rushing with water. The whole world seems like it's exploding. And somebody that only knows the winter says, the world is coming to an end. It's coming to an end. We're saying it's the springtime. It's a time of a new rising, humanity rising. It's a time long foretold. And we know that it's not just us experiencing it, but so many relatives of the human family, they feel it. They can feel it. I talk to people, good friends, they don't have to be on a, these are relatives in the supermarket. They know what's happening. We're wise relatives, we human beings. We're pretty good at denial, but sooner or later here in these next days, we are going to wake up and realize it's time to humble ourselves. It's time to understand that the hurt of one is the hurt of all. And the honor of one is the honor of all. And we are one human family. And beyond that, I believe in the prior unity and oneness of the human family, that we have been there from the very beginning. From the very beginning of the heart of this entire creation. We are part of it. We are intimate with it. And life, when that whole thing, what do you want to call it? The Big Bang, or what do you call it? This universe is one. You can take the atomic chart and you can take it here in They say this universe we live in is around 100,000 light years across, the Milky Way, the small little tiny part of our universe, a galaxy, I mean. You can take that atomic chart and you can find it 100 billion light years away. It's the same atomic chart. It's all the same. Maybe a few different elements we haven't quite picked up yet. But this physical universe in which we live, there is a power also, by the way, that connects us instantaneously. That what happens here instantaneously impacts everything in this universe, all the way across. And the last part I want to share, I just discovered this. I think it's just, again, science is proving what our elders knew. And so somebody asked me, said, where does iron come from? I said, well, I don't know. He said, well, they said, iron. He said, you know, iron is in every part of our hemoglobin, right at the center. Iron is created in supernovas. In supernovas, at a place of hydrogen and helium at a certain place, you see the creation of iron. Of course, it's at the center of this earth. We know that. But all the iron on the surface came from, they say, from the stars. So how is it we have hemoglobin filled with iron coming from the stars? So we, in a way, our elders talked about how we're related to the stars, and we are. So, you know, thank you, sisters, so much for your sharing. I feel very honored here to be with you. And yes, we are humanity rising. And I'll tell you, I'm looking forward for our elders rising. The older, the better. It's time to rise. Even if you have to rise with your how do you say it, your crutch.
No, I'm going to rise with my feather.
Me too.
Feather,
Me too.
feather.
It's time to rise.
So,
Good.
so
At least we have a good laugh this morning.
I see that the questions, and I'm loving the chat. Thank you, all of you, for everything you're putting in there, because that's my feeling, is like, let's take action. So we're going to be moving now into, so Robin, if you could share more about the specific ceremony, but not to take too much time, because I want us to spend some time talking about what actions we can be taking. So take it away, Robin, and your ceremonies that you have planned.
Okay, well, that will be a very small piece of this, because I've been watching the chat too. And Bruce, I would like to say to you that I think we all have the same feelings you do. Yeah, we all want action. And we are all taking it in the best way for each one of us. Each one of us has a life purpose and a life passion. Many passions, maybe. A young woman came to me a few years ago and said to me, I have this choice to make about jobs, and I don't know what my life purpose is. I don't know if either one of these jobs will fulfill this. Well, we talked for a while. I asked her to identify 4 or 5 passions. She did. She loves to sing. She loves to dance. She loves to go on bicycle tours where she can sing and dance and make people laugh while she's on a bicycle tour. She loves to come to festivals to do the same thing. She's currently a barista, and when people come in and they're all grouchy in the morning, she tells them a joke and makes them laugh. I said, so what's the common denominator? Reduce it down to 1 sentence. She said, oh, I love to help people be happy. I said, well, that's your life purpose. Can't you do that anywhere? Yeah. And it's really that simple for all of us. We came here to do something specific, but we can do it anywhere, anytime. Bruce, if your passion is to act in service of humanity and all our relatives through activism, then do it. Yeah? Some of us, it's our purpose to do it through ceremony. I saw somebody ask about forgiveness. We all indigenous people, have a kind of forgiveness ceremony. It's different for each one. The current one that's going around the world is a very simple form of Ho'oponopono. There's a lot more to it than what people are doing, but the current form is also valuable because it takes us into ourselves to say thank you for everything that is here, whether I like it or not. And that's very important. There's a lot of things we don't like, but they're also part of us. Bruce, you sound angry. So are all those wounded people who are colonizers, who came through that line of descent. They're angry because they're afraid somebody's going to take something away from them. Okay? We already had it taken away from us. We have anger too. Yeah? What do we do about that? Well, there are processes to go through to say, okay, I get it. Every one of us has this. We're all human. We're all part of the same human family. So thank you. I love you. Please forgive me. Yes, Mr. Trump is a wounded colonizer. He's got some of the biggest wounds I've ever seen. Yeah? And he's fulfilling his purpose. He brought the underbelly of America to light again. We needed to see that. Every single one of us. We don't like him, but I forgive him because he did what he was supposed to do. I'm real happy if we get him out of there in November or before so that we can move to the next level. But that's what this is all about. We're always moving to a new level. Either that or we're dying. Really simple. You either get to live and grow or you die. Yeah? So, ceremonies. We have ceremonies for grieving. Phil, you did a beautiful ceremony for grieving when we first came into your training for leadership and talking circle facilitators. One of the things that humanity has run away from as far and as fast as possible is our grief. We're human beings. We know what we're doing here. We know that we've harmed Mother Earth and all our relatives. That brings us grief. Me, I'm a half-blood. I have the colonizer and I have the indigenous. My whole body was at war for years. My relatives killed each other. I had to heal that. And the only way to heal it was by forgiveness. First, I had to feel the grief of it, the pain, the sorrow, the anger, the rage, all of it. And I had to give it in grief. Then I had to go to forgiveness, both forgiving all my ancestors and all the trauma that they brought on both sides. Yeah. My dad was an alcoholic because he couldn't be an Indian, he had to be an Italian. And he molested me for 4 years. I buried that as soon as I could. I didn't even remember it until I was 27 and started working on it myself, and later found out that my husband was molesting my daughter. Talk about grief. A lot. Yeah. And forgiveness, how do you forgive people who molested you or molested your child? And I had to. For my own life. If I did not forgive them, I would have committed suicide. And I'm very literal about that. Yeah? It's a process. You can say you forgive and not feel like you're forgiven. Yeah? Okay, that's fine. We are taught that these things that most people consider to be emotions that just kind of come and go, no, they're choices. We have choices. I can choose to forgive whether I feel forgiveness or not. Okay. This is about us, Bruce. It's about all of us. Every single one of us is a part of the human process. What we hold on to and don't release harms everybody. There's an old saying about if a butterfly flutters its wings here in Arizona, does it create a hurricane 3 days later in Hong Kong? Yeah. Everything we do affects everything else. What we hold in our heart and the way we act from our heart affects everything else. So in 2014, I was in this huge mudslide. A mountain fell down. It killed 43 people in our little rural neighborhood. Somehow I survived. Well, I know how. That one pulled me out of it. Yeah. When I came out of the mud and the water, I had heard Mother Earth screaming, literally saying, I did not want this mountain to fall down. I did not want this to happen. This was caused by human error. Okay. So, what do I do about that? Someone came to me right after the slide, a reporter, and asked me what I thought had caused it. I said, what holds mountains up? Rocks and trees. They logged it. Go find out. It's not my job. But I heard her screaming. I didn't want this to happen. Do something, Robin. What do? I'm just one little human being. Yeah. And then the vision started coming. And then I got a message from a Cherokee elder, D. Smith, who said that we used to do a dance to celebrate life, a dance to heal the earth. At the same time, I received a painting from a dear friend, and the painting was of an Indian woman in her shawl dancing, feather in her hair, and he had titled it on the back, Earth Mother Dancing. 4 times in my life, I have been asked by medicine men to take on a women's Sundance because they told me, all 4 of them, that the original Sundance was a woman's dance without piercing, and that they gave it to the men when they saw the men needed to learn how to suffer as women do for the people. 4 times I was told this. 4 times I was asked to lead this dance, and every time I said, no, this is not, it's too big for me. I don't understand it. Okay? It was 4 medicine men from different tribes, Lakota, Dakota, Nakota, and Anishinaabe. And I kept saying no. And then this vision came with this dance. So I brought this dance out. We dance it now in many places in the world. Dance to heal the earth. Mother Earth can heal herself. Why does she need us? She might be better letting us all go extinct. And yet in 2012, this shift came through. The Mayans first thought that it was going to be the end of the world. And then as they began to really delve into their calendar, they realized, no, it was the end of a Canton, 26,000 years. And now it is time to shift from fear into love. My very first Sundance intercessor, medicine man, told me there are only 2 real energies on earth, and everything reduces to that, love and fear. What's your choice? Do you want to live in love or do you want to live in fear? So this dance We dance for up to 4 days, fasting, keeping the heartbeat with Mother Earth with our feet, hearing the drum and the songs, keeping our eyes focused on the tree of life, giving gratitude for life. And every single time it brings up those things we fear, and we give them to the universe. We give them to the universe in forgiveness of ourselves and everything else. And in return, we receive that love and healing that we need to fulfill our passion and purpose. Whatever that passion and purpose is, it's unique and individual, but it's also collective. Because when we are able to act from our passion and purpose, we change the world together. And that's what we're here for. There are lots of other ceremonies. There are solstice ceremonies and equinox ceremonies. There are ceremonies for the sacred waters, air, earth, and fire, the elementals. As Phil said, we are stardust. We carry all 4 elementals within us. Everything here is sacred. Everything was created sacred way. The original instructions are very simple. Phil talked about some of them. There are very few universal laws. And most humans don't recognize most of them. Yeah. One of the very first is honor the sacred in everything. Honor the sacred in everything and everyone. We don't need new laws, Bruce. We got way too many laws as it is. The original instructions are the laws. If we just followed them, we wouldn't need any of the other stuff. You don't know that indigenous people didn't have jails. We had big populations. There were 3 million people here in America before the colonizers came, living according to universal laws. And I agree with you. We need to restore those. We need to bring them into total clarity so that everybody understands what they are. And we need to go back. I'm not saying we're going to go back without cars and houses and all that kind of stuff. We need to go back to living from the truth that lives within each one of us. Phil does have 16 principles. We can talk about those too, maybe on this call and maybe on another one. I'm going to turn it back to Edna now. And Edna, can you please talk about what we as Sacred Earth Council and what Phil is doing with the Talking Circle leaderships and so forth, so that we can share with people the actions that are already happening.
Thank you. Yeah, this is, to me, this is the juiciest part, because we need to be coming together and having dialogue and having ceremonies. So Sacred Earth Council is going to be sponsoring ceremonies of very many kinds of ceremonies. And I noticed that one person was talking a lot about the babies. And I feel that the babies have actually come to me from the etheric. And yes, they're wanting acknowledgement and healing. And it's also the babies within ourselves. Coming into this life is a challenge. You know, we come through the birth canal, and some of those journeys for the mother and the baby some of them are very difficult. Some of them are easier, but even in coming into life can be traumatic. So we will have Sacred Earth Council is going to be partnering with very many other organizations. We're not purporting to know it all or have it all. What we're really purporting to do is just to encourage this movement that's already started, because ska, power is moving. Many indigenous people are regaining ceremonies and hosting ceremonies. So we would be wanting indigenous groups to partner. We would like to partner with indigenous groups. Indigenous groups partner with other groups. We would like to partner with Four Worlds International. We'd like to partner with Ubiquity University to host not only ceremonies, but talking circles, deep dialogues for processing not only what comes out of those ceremonies, but to start this conversation of just treating ourselves and relating to one another in a new way. And those ceremonies will also deepen our relationship and our ability to partner with Earth, to hear Earth. There are many people that are able to, I'm sitting out here because I wanted my relatives, the trees, to be here with us. And I don't know, you probably can't hear the cicadas calling behind me, but ceremony can transform us and deepen us and grow us, but we also need that ability to process it. And that's where I feel like talking circles being held all around the planet. And for people who feel inspired, you're inspired to host dialogue. But hosting dialogue is not about having all the answers. Hosting dialogue is coming there with the openness of your heart to find our way into greater love and greater kindness in all of our institutions, because all of them do need to be reworked. Jim was talking about the challenges to the whole economic structure right now. As COVID continues, we could, some people believe we're in the early stages of total collapse of civilization. So if civilization is truly collapsing, then we are the creators. We need to be working together and catching and transforming. So we need to be coming together in dialogues. Now, this to me has its purposes. We were hoping originally to have some kind of an interactive session where we could have broken out into talking circles. So that's something I'd like to do more with Jim and with Phil Lane and with lots of different organizations, for us to find ways for people to come together in community, in the spirit of community, in the spirit of healing, in the spirit of transforming and healing our trauma, and in the spirit of the creation of our new civilization. We need to be creating this together. And the only way we can do this is by coming together and dialoguing together. So that's what I'm calling for, is all these circles within circles within circles, these hoops within hoops within hoops, for us to work together. That's what we're really wanting to do. So Sacred Earth Council, we have committed to a cycle of 4 more years. The first year, next year, is the cycle for honoring and healing with water, to water, from water. We're going to be joining with sacred codes of the codes. Help me out here, Robin. It's codes for the sacred earth, because they're
codes for a healthy earth,
codes for the healthy earth,
and a world water law.
And yeah, they're sponsoring not only a world water law, but we'd like to join with them to call the whole year of 2021 the year of radical healing, so that we can be focused on this process, and so that people can the water that washes our body, washes everything. The tears that wash our grief and that open us so that we can be washed and pure, so that we feel our divinity and our sacredness and our love as we come into greater understanding. And I am working with others. We are planning ceremonies of forgiveness. We've already recognized many of our transgressions, and we are ready to forgive many things. Not everything is ready to be in a state of forgiveness, but there are many things that are, and we need to start that process. So the first year is the year of honoring water. The second year will be the year of honoring uh, air, and then earth, and then fire. So Sacred Earth Council, and we were doing ceremonies throughout this time and partnering with other organizations, not only for ceremony, Sacred Earth, with talking circles, deep dialogues, and encouraging others to be active in the way that we're all being called. All of us are being called right now. And so, and to follow that inspiration and to support one another as we walk this road together. So I'd like to hear some responses now from not only Phil, but from Jim about this whole partnership for creating interactive dialogue.
Yes.
So Phil, would you like to go first?
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Mkashi, for sharing. I talked about Abe Bernstick and Eddie Belrose, these two wonderful elders that we met with in 1975. At that time, they shared with us what is now called a talking circle, or sharing circle, or healing circle. They gave us very clear guidelines of how to unfold this in a graceful, respectful manner so that all could be heard, so all could be listened to. And so we began at that time, 1975, these circles began to be shared, and further. Different people took their different ways of doing it until finally it was really wonderful. In 2003, I was invited, as by the way, as a result of the State of the World Forum, Brother Jim, that you put together by Fred Motzer. I was invited to come over to a session on dialogue that David Bohm, this great European scientist, developed what they call dialogue. That was another way, in a way, it was somewhat of a reflection of the Socratic method. So it was very interesting when the talking circles, we brought them from the Americas, and the dialogue came together. It seemed to fuse even some newer, more kind of a way of sharing, you might say, different ways of looking at things. And so now we find talking circles everywhere. Everywhere. They have them in business. They have them in healing circles, and in treatment centers, and all over. And there became really now in Europe, in these major, like Unilever. That's where we were doing some of the workshops on talking circle. Many people are understanding this concept. So when this COVID-19 came, we took the years of experience and we put those into a 7-week intensive course where people step by step could learn about talking circles and become a certified talking circle leader. And so it was very intense because everybody had to themselves find talking circles to lead before they could complete all the requirements. And so what happened was we were able to certify or graduate over 120 talking circle leaders who really are trained. And so they were able to step in to the World Unity Week. They were able to step into backing up when we wanted to hear from this new presidential candidate who came and shared with our International Women's Circle, Four Worlds International Women's Circle. So this is, by the way, something I think that Brother Jim, that I think that it would be incredible to talk about this. We've got the curricula, you've got the certainly all the digital part. It's a perfect timing. We've got, as you know, we've got so many trained already. We could do a wonderful partnership and have a talking circle program where relatives could gain that dimension, because I feel like this as an associate professor at the University of Lethbridge for 16 years, that education needs to be a two-way street. And I see that about you. You've always been like that. It's always been about dialogue ever since I've known you, when you came together and we had the gathering in 95 and 96 that I attended. It's always about people talking to each other. It's not a one-way street, just like this is. So the capacity to have people come together and learn how to share from their hearts together in a way that's respectful, that no one's put down, that only the good things are brought in. And I think that's another thing I'm going to close with here, because it's getting time here. I'm going to have to make this required trip I have to make down to COVID land. Woo! It's going to be a good one. I'll tell you, I got to be a little careful here. We're finding out. Somebody said to me, well, isn't that kind of overdoing this thing? I said, I'll tell you what, how many relatives do you think are dear relatives, are laying in a bed right now, or been laid in the bed in the last 5 months, and would have wished they would have just humbled themselves enough to put on a mask, to wash their hands like we're told, just to humble ourselves a little bit. Just how, imagine when you're in that state, and you're suffocating to death. I think you really might review, hey, just a minute, maybe that guy's not so crazy to protect himself. Just in case, even if you don't believe it, just in case, at least be there. Anyway, I love you guys. I'm looking forward to furthering this dialogue. It's a perfect example of what it's about. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Edna. Thank you, Jim, and your great staff that back you up. Because great people like yourself always have great people with them behind them. I know that. All of us. That's the story. Okay, I'm going to excuse myself if I might, dear Hunkashi, if I might. Would you excuse me?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. We will be in
Much
touch.
love to you, Brother Phil.
Yes, my love to you all, and I know you're going to just tie it up just with elegance and beauty, and a great one.
Thank you.
Love you all.
Love you.
Wano and Wopila.
Wopila.
Doksha.
Doksha.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yes. So we're inviting everyone to partner with us, partner with one another, continue to be part of Ubiquity University's great dialogues and offerings. There's so much beauty and knowledge and wisdom that's coming forth. And now I feel like it is time for us to come into a different form of summit, where we're actually summiting. One thing that I would like to see, and I'll put it out here, this is personally, that we have very many facilitators that could maybe go to, I think Portland would be maybe a beautiful place if we could have a convening of a great dialogue there of all the different communities and people who are wanting to talk, but it's mostly in the form of protest and then news media. But because we have people who are experts in facilitating nonviolent communication, so we can start hearing the voices of all the participants, because the minute we start hearing what is needed, then there can be a different response. I mean, and it could be a model. So, but you would need to have somebody in a position to be able to convene such a dialogue. I don't know, maybe was it was it Amsterdam, or which community in Europe had the torus or the donut economics? Maybe that's the place to start it, because everything is toroidal. The atoms are toroidal, we are toroidal, the universe is toroidal. So maybe yeah, if we could find a place, I mean, that would be a great kind of a circle, a hoop of healing. And we have the capacity. I love that Thomas Hubel, and when your conversation with him, he was saying, you know, we're paradoxical. We are the problem, but we are also the solution. And that really is the truth. And we're really that the solution part is because we're expanding, we're leaping into another level of consciousness, and this consciousness is involved as being these beings of such love and creativity and connection and resonance, that all of these issues are totally solvable, but we need to be doing it collectively. This is the huge calling, you know, it's a huge calling for all of us right now.
May I say something, Edna?
Absolutely, yes.
I just posted here that in 1980, I had a vision of circles, overlapping circles, overlapping circles, overlapping circles all the way around the world. And I see this happening. This is the springtime. We are blossoming. Yeah. I love your idea of going to Portland, and I'm in. I'll go.
I wasn't asking to go there, but I don't know, you know, if that was what was, you know, I don't know. That's a
I
total
was in
surprise.
solo
That's a
and
surprise.
slide.
Yeah, that's a surprise. That's the nice thing I love about these dialogues is, you know, we all get surprised, and my heart is just singing right now. Jim, some responses, some reflections, input.
Thank you, Edna. Thank you, Grandmother Robin, and Phil in his absence. I've been profoundly impressed by the vulnerability that you've all shared, and Robin, your life story and the grief that you expressed, and Edna, you as well, and the way Phil's taking it back to, you know, the Roman times, and you know, we're all the result of transgenerational trauma.
Yes.
All of our forebears were traumatized and inflicted trauma generation upon generation upon generation. And now, as Thomas Hubel says, our trauma has become so massive that we're essentially descending into an equally massive death wish. And that is an integral part of why we don't seem to be able to turn this thing around, is because of the accumulated weight of trauma. So I just want to acknowledge the trauma that your people have endured over the centuries, the trauma that all of our people have endured over the millennia, in the hopes that we in our generation could somehow break that chain. It reminds me of what Chekhov often said, you know, is that's only drop by drop we squeeze the slave out of ourselves. Drop by drop we squeeze the slave out of ourselves. And I think we're all doing it, whoever we are and wherever we are. And that leads me to the second point that I think is worth just underscoring, and that is what you said, Edna, and then Phil, and also you, Grandmother Robin, around the importance of dialogue. The only way to break the cycle of trauma is to reach out, hold hands, meet heart to heart, look each other in the eyes, and just open our beings to one another to say, this is my humanity. Let me hear about your humanity, and let us do it in the spirit of loving kindness. And that, of course, is the essence and spirit of dialogue. You know, dialogue isn't talking to someone. Dialogue is speaking with someone.
Yes.
And that means that you have to open your ears and your heart to truly understand the other. And when we truly understand the other, we experience the mutual humanity. And as you said, Grandmother Robin, that's when forgiveness naturally arises. And so I just want to thank both of you for this deep wisdom. It's felt like a grace today on this Sunday. And I think that this is what Humanity Rising has been convened to express. And obviously, Edna, however we can partner with you and support what you're doing, I'm going to be in touch with actually about possibly uploading his course on the Ubiquity platform and offering it to everybody in Humanity Rising, offering it to all of our students, because I can't imagine anything more important in the world right now than overlapping concentric circles of talking circles. It'd be a beautiful, beautiful thing to take out into the larger community. And so as we draw this time to a close today, I'm wondering, Grandmother Robin, whether you could maybe provide a closing prayer or light some sage or anything that you would like to do to bring this to a close. Any final statements that you'd like to make, Edna?
Yeah, just to thank you, Jim, and the way Mystery has kept us in touch all over these years. And each time we touch, it's kind of in a some kind of a profound way. So I'm really thankful. I'm thankful to all the participants and how beautiful it was to have this chat, even though we couldn't speak directly, but I did feel the interactive nature in its limitations, but I feel like we were able to be in touch with one another and for us to help this grow, for our hearts to connect. It's about healing this heart of humanity, but not each inside of each of us, it's all of us. Heart disease across the world is not by accident, along with all the other diseases. And so if Robin would, if you would like to close with some kind of lighting some sage and prayer, and then I would like to be singing the Memoria. The Memoria is from Fleur de Mayo, and it's a song of deep love from the mother. It's just it's a murmuration, you know, it's a murmuration coming from the heart. So yeah.
I actually want to sing a song too. And before I do that, Jim, if there's a way that you can take all the different links that are on the chat and send it to us, I'd really love that. I would love to be connected, and I'm sure Sacred Earth Council would love to be connected with all these different circles that are already happening. Thank you. So this song was given to me by a sister who later was murdered, actually. It's a song for grieving and for lifted grief. It came, I believe, from either the Apache or the Comanche people. She gifted it to us long before her passing, and we sang it for her after she passed. I would ask you all to close your eyes and really feel what comes with this song, and feel that grief moving up through you and out into the universe. Remember, to Mother Earth and Father Sky, energy is just energy. They'll eat it and use it in the best way possible. It hasn't got positive and negative consequences to it, okay? All right, so I have to stand to sing this song. It's an honor song. You don't have to stand. highway, 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 how we should show. Highway, away, away, oh. Highway, how we should show. Highway, 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 how we should show. Highway, away, away, oh. Highway, how we should show. Highway, 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 how we should show. Highway, away, away, oh. Highway, how we should show. Highway, 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 how we should show. Highway, away, away, you. Highway, how we should show. Give a moment of silence, please, to let that rise and move through your hearts and expand out into the universe to be taken away by the little birds in love. And when you're ready, Rajna.
Great love, blessing us all, being us all, living us all, enthralling us all. Gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you, Edna. Thank you, Grandmother Robin. Thank you, Phil. Thank you all. We've heard from the voices of the elders, for which we give thanks. We'll see you all tomorrow, same time, same station, 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock p.m. Central European Time, for a dialogue tomorrow on brands and super brands, how we can make the major brands of the world more sustainable and in alignment with the wisdom of the elders. See you all tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Edna, so much. Beautiful session. Thank you, Robin.